All right, welcome everyone. Let's see. Ben, looks like you're doing notes. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm signing up John too. We can,
Good
if I
deal.
get distracted, he's got my back.
I'll put the notes link there in the chat if you need it. So let's see. As far as action items, it's really not much has changed here. We're still working towards this new badge for the sizing process, but we are making progress. It's just the kind of thing that takes time. I think I'm at the point now where I'm going to go ahead and work on the final tutorial video for that Fusion 360 virtual fitting. I mean, I haven't really heard anything in the way of any significant feedback or suggestions of changes or anything like that. Have you seen anything in the hub that I've missed, Ben or John? Any on the comments on that post maybe or anything? Because if not, I think I'm at a point where I would just go ahead and could do it kind of like I showed it in the demo.
I'd say get it out there, Jeremy.
I think you got great feedback from the last workshop, the focused follow-up. I thought people responded pretty well. Alexander had some feedback though.
He did. Unfortunately, those things, I might have to follow up with him. He talked about using the section view, and I tried that. As soon as you turn on the section view, it hides the canvases, so you can't see your image through the fitting. So I don't think that'll work. I think we have to use transparency. But yeah, it's a good point. Maybe I should follow up with him. He's going to be, hopefully, he joined our design team, so hopefully he'll be in our meeting tomorrow, and I can ask him then. So that's a good point. I'll check in with him on, because he had one other suggestion too, and I'll see where that one stands.
Yeah, he seems like he has a lot of experience.
Yeah. John, figure out how to embed Lumio's summary in the hub. Lumio's. Oh, this is like what, a summary of the all the proposals and the results. That's right. Okay, not yet. Okay. Upcoming presentations next week. We got Isabella. Right? I got it right this time, right? Next week, right? Okay, good deal. Let's see, Dylan Beam. I think this was something John put on here. That's several weeks out.
He did pick a date. I'm gonna find it in my email.
Okay.
He just emailed a few days ago, and I think it's mid-June.
Yeah, if you want to just put that there in the notes, that's what I use as my reminder as it's coming up.
June 25th.
Oh, okay.
So I'll respond to him.
Okay. That's a Friday?
Yep.
Okay. So we've got him down for June 25th, and then several PR opportunities from Bob to Ben. What does that mean?
From Bob to Ben. That's
Bob, you're muted. Bob, you're muted.
So I can talk to that a little bit. I did email Chi-Chi. Is that her name? The woman working on her.
Call yourself Chi-Chi. Chi-Chi.
Okay. So there's a woman in mainland China who's doing a thesis related to distributed healthcare. So I did email her, and I emailed Kyle.
Oh, so these are potential guests to give presentations here?
No, these are tickets that came into the help desk, Jeremy, where people said they wanted to engage with us, so I sent them on to Ben.
Right, I guess that's not really a PR opportunity. Yeah, I did have a meeting before this with 3D Sourced. It's a UK-based 3D printing, but also 3D design website. I met with them in January and actually posted an article in the hub, and a bunch of people reviewed it. Okay. They're really interested to try to do a regular story about e-NABLE related things. So I gave them a tour of the new badge system, and I talked about some of the workshops that we're doing and the devices and the 3D color customizer. And so they might do something regularly, like once a month or once a season.
A presentation on the SPC?
Oh no, the PR. They would do articles bringing light to.
I'm just looking at upcoming special guest presentations in the SPC. Do we have any others?
Got it. Yeah. PR opportunities. I'm not sure what that would be otherwise. I'm fishing.
I'm just gonna take that off. All right, so we've got two that we know of coming up, Isabella and then Dylan. If anyone else has ideas of people that might be up for presenting their work here, let's get them on the list.
Well, at some point, Dara is going to have to give us an update.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I don't think we wanted, there's so much to talk about these days. I don't think we want to have guest presentations every week, but I do think we should have a goal of having, a guest presentation at least once or twice a month, because it's really nice to hear what those others are up to throughout the community. So let's just try to keep, it looks like, let's see, May. So we've got one for May, one for June. Let's just kind of fill in a little bit more as we can. Stats are on the next page as usual, and not a whole lot changed, except that on the back end, things have changed a bit because of work we've done. So I need to go to different places to get data now, but otherwise, not much different here. So I'll let you guys just kind of peruse the charts on your own. So I kind of grouped everything under this new topic of infrastructure development and process updates, just because we have a lot going on. So we can just kind of talk through each of these. Is there any, how things going on badging? And well, now that Bob walks away, maybe we come back to badging. Ben, do you have any updates on that? I mean, anything as far as, I guess we're all kind of plugged into this. So I don't know that there's a whole lot to talk about. The new badging system is rolled out. It's working. I think I saw 16 badges issued this week. I was doing the reporting, so.
Great. So that's about normal.
It's typical, yeah. That was pretty standard week. It kind of settled into the first week it was a lot more just because people were trying it out, and now it seems to be settling into a normal pattern. So we're still working on chapter management in the hub, so that's going to be through the same kind of page that Masvi's been working on, and I guess that's still a work in progress, as is the spot management.
So maybe just a quick update for those that weren't in the meeting. We did seem to settle on a weekly meeting with Masvi looking at development. Jeremy and Masvi set up a sort of not really a ticket system, but using comments to try to follow up on some of the development related to badges. The big focus that they've had the last week has been on the badge icons themselves, having it sort of a new visual identity system for that, having the colors and even the shapes represent the different categories, or having it be more of a system. So that's something that Masvi's working on. Jeremy's been working closely on that, so that the two of them through the sort of the stream system that they have will be updating folks once a week in these.
Yeah, you're going to be seeing this in steps, but the first thing that the community is going to see is on the new badging page. Right now it's kind of a hodgepodge of different kinds of designs and different color schemes, and they've all been kind of created by different people at different times. When we roll out this design update, there'll be some reorganization, a little bit of regrouping of badges, but for the most part, the badges themselves won't be changing. Just the graphics will be changing, but you're going to see everything look a lot nicer. Everything's going to look similar, have a similar style, but then color schemes to identify different kind of groupings and subgroupings. So it's basically going to be a visual upgrade first, along with some reorganization. And then from there, we'll proceed to creating some new badges for some of the new things we've been talking about, and kind of go forward from there. So mostly a visual update at first for the badges, which my guess is we'll be seeing within the next 1 to 2 weeks, probably, although I don't know for sure.
So that means that it'll be after that there's a shift to the chapter page and that kind of stuff. So that'll probably be at the earliest the end of May, I would imagine.
So we'll work on incorporating chapter management into the same platform, just again to make it easier for those who are administering this to review the information and semi-automate things where we can, and get them into the map and kind of tied into the other systems. Same thing with chapter spotlight management, the work that Ben has been doing. The pattern that we're seeing here, and what seems to be working well, is that somebody, whether it's Ben for the spotlights or Bob for the chapter management process, we're having somebody that is modeling a process. They go through it and they kind of do it manually, and they get into a good rhythm and they find what works. And then we build a system to try to kind of automate or streamline that. And that's kind of what we're going through now. These systems have all been modeled previously by Bob and Ben mostly, and And now we're kind of building those into the hub and making it easier to do that.
Yeah,
so
cool. And it's clear. I mean, from the chat, not the chat, the post in the hub. There was a post 4 hours ago with a father of a daughter that just received a device, and his question is, how do I get a badge? So people are thinking about this in terms of, having the badges. I think it's a little bit more integrated, and you can see, who has what skill sets, and I don't know.
That was one of the things we talked about was we don't know what we're calling them yet, but I'm going to call them recipients for now. Recipients and recipient families, having more badges specifically for them, because we want to encourage their involvement. We want them more plugged in. So we got to have more badges to encourage those kinds of behaviors. Right now, I think we only have one that's for an enabled device user. So we're going to work on that too, and have a whole category of badges for the people that are actually, the ones with limb differences or families of those. So yeah, a lot of good stuff happening, and it does seem to be having beneficial effects already. I think it's definitely brought better visibility to the badging platform, and that in turn, I think will help us to achieve the original goals of that system, which was to encourage those types of behaviors that those badges are tied to. So good stuff. Let's see, we just got a list of emails and subdomains here. I don't think we need to go through that. We mentioned these last time. There are some subdomains that we set up in DNS. So I don't remember doing maps. What is that, John? Maps.enable.org? Did we set that one up? I don't know what that is. Chapters.enable.org points right to our chapters map. Finance.enable.org points right to the Open Collective. Lumio.enable.org will take you right to Lumio. So we're setting up these subdomains so that people don't have to remember all these different, sites and URLs. You don't have to use these, and I don't think we've even really put these out there too much yet. But as we develop this collection, we can start using them more, and eventually that everything is under. You could even guess that if you're looking for something, it's whatever.enable.org, you'll probably find it. So,
Jeremy, question, please.
Yeah.
I apologize. I had to take a phone call.
Oh, sure.
I'm still handling general inquiries coming into Zoho. And the question would be if that could be put onto a private space on the hub that I could moderate, because that would mean we wouldn't have to spend money. You wouldn't have to spend money for me on Zoho, right?
Let me think about that. The only downside to doing it that way is we have to think about how do we make that really easily accessible and findable by everyone. Right now, the nice thing about the way we're doing it is, if you go to the hub, you'll see I got that little chat widget down there. It doesn't matter what page you're on, you've always got that chat widget. And I never have anybody that's on the live chat, as you know, so it always goes to send us a message.
Yeah.
That will always get you directly to the help desk, no matter where you are. We have to think about how we can do that kind of thing. Now, we got Masvi. He can probably help us figure something out.
I'm just trying to figure a way to save you some money, because
I appreciate it.
Zoho has gone down to a minimal level of non-badging requests, which I handle every day, but it's now only 1 to 3 a day. So it seems a shame to spend a lot of money.
Let me think about that. Maybe we can figure out a way to get that into the hub. Maybe Masvi can help me with that. Like we were talking about before, we're a little tied up with some of the updates we're doing right now with badging, but so that
there's something for the list.
Exactly. I'm okay with it now. It's an inconvenience to you to have to deal with 2 platforms, but
no, trust me, it's fine for me. No problem. I was just thinking from the financial.
It's a good idea, and I'll look into that with Masvi. Thank you.
I've got a quick question about the e-NABLE email addresses. This is something I asked Masvi and other folks. I'll ask it again here. Badges at enable.org, chapters at enable.org, both of those are going to have an account within Badger. I don't know if we need to have both of those as Badger accounts. I'm sort of getting into the weeds here, but just something to think about. I'm not really sure.
As far as I know, all badges are being issued as under badges at enable.org now. I'm not aware of using 2 different accounts. And I mean, we can ask Masvi in our next meeting, but I thought everything was being done under badges.
We do have one of the admin accounts is chapters at enable.org.
I know the account's there. I'm not aware of us using it for anything.
Right. So maybe we can move it.
Yeah, so we'll ask about that in the next development meeting. So chapter Wishbone project, I think we have a meeting coming up for that, right?
Yep. We've got a meeting coming up. It mostly is ready to go. I can share my screen and give people a walkthrough if we have time for that. I've got the 2 printers that Jeremy is posting. They're up. I did email everybody yesterday with sort of a plan with some questions about, active chapters. Things have shifted since the initial proposal. So we're not doing the formal audit system. But I think we still can use just those few questions that show up on the chapter map. John says it's going up this week. You should present now. Okay, I can present now. Do we have time for that?
Go for it.
All right. Share my screen. John, I'll let you take notes. Okay. You can tell how many tabs I have. I apologize. Okay, so this is live. If you go to Wishbone in the spaces, it pops up. I might edit some of this because we don't really have the audit or feedback set up. So I have to go in and change a couple of things. But heads or tails, you go to the space and there's pin posts at the top. So here's equipment and materials. There's 2 links at the top where you can donate or cover shipping. You can learn more. But the drop down shows the posted printers. So for any material, any materials or equipment that come in through the form, they'll be added to this list. The listing itself, if you click on it, will open up a post, which is just something that I take the Google form and then make a post out of it in the space. So they can get more details. But again, it's got some general information about shipping. It's got the location. It has the selection process clearly identified, which is something that the person posting decides. Are they going to award this equipment to the first person who requests it, the person that they feel like is going to use it the best, the closest person. In terms of who can use this system, so again, if you say donate equipment to chapters, learn more, you click there, this will take you over to the wiki and I'll take you down to the section on the requests. So we've got a lot of Q&A questions about who pays for shipping, how the selection is made, some more general stuff, active chapter status. So we've got a Q&A section.
Well, can you scroll back up a little bit, Ben? There was an option to, there it is. So there's, okay, completed equipment donations. Looks like that's what that second table would be. What I was going to ask is up above, there was an option to donate, I guess it was money for shipping or donate funds to cover shipping. If somebody does that appear somewhere? Like, is there somewhere that says, so-and-so has donated $100, so-and-so has donated 50, is that kind of tracked somewhere or shown somewhere?
I figured what I can do for that is within the comments below the post. So again, this is sort of the main
shipping tied to a certain piece of equipment.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
So if somebody wants to cover the shipping, you could go to the listing and I could add a comment.
I see. Okay. So the idea is that one chapter might decide to pay for the shipping to get a printer sent off to another chapter even potentially. Okay.
Could be.
All right.
And then there's a completed requests. And then under that are the chapter requests. So you can see that this one does have a chapter request that's completed. So Helping Hands of Littleton is Nate's chapter. He received $100 from Terry
Now, what does that mean, type materials? So did he get $100 worth of 3D printing materials, or did he get $100?
So he was working on a exoskeleton glove for Terry's grandson, and she donated funds to cover his material costs.
Okay, so she gave money to help him cover the cost of materials. I got it. Okay.
Right. So, it just basically allows for donations to happen. Primarily, though, I'm hoping that this is going to be oriented more for if there's a chapter that's having some specific challenges, and we've had some that have identified in the past. I mean, this whole thing started with an email exchange with Jen, basically saying, what about the chapters that are struggling? This is something that's much more streamlined than Lumio, which can take weeks. It's even faster than the SPC discretionary fund, which is once a week and involves a presentation and a vote. This is something where if they're approved, if basically it's seen as they're an active chapter and it's under $1,000, they can be getting support immediately. And instead of voting, it's just people can just donate.
And clarify something else for me, Ben, am I understanding correctly that this program, you have to be a chapter to be let's say a beneficiary, a recipient of the funds or the equipment, but anyone can participate in terms of donating and contributing?
Correct. So that's in the wiki. There's, and there's links to that. So who can participate in the Chapter Wishbone sharing program? So yeah, active chapters. All community members can support the request. And then what is an active chapter? I've sort of redefined it. This is low-hanging fruit. Basically what shows up on the chapter map is this information. So if a chapter hasn't updated this in the last 6 months, with the request, they can send this. And then they're considered active. I can do a little bit of backstory into, again, there's the Wishbone Wizard, that's me. So we don't have this automated, but I can look into their posts on Facebook and ask them some questions and that kind of stuff, just like what Bob's done at the help desk. I can learn a little bit more.
I mean, that's what I was going to say. I mean, Bob is already managing chapters. You could also just ask Bob, are these guys active? He can tell you.
Well, and some of it too involves probably looking at their Facebook pages and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So last but not least, I can show you the form. So if I'm interested to donate, so it pops up a form. And then, is this a chapter request? Is this supporting a chapter request or shipping, or is this offering equipment? So let's say it's offering equipment. They just go through the steps, fill out some basic information. They can add photos of the equipment. Now it's optional. That was a point that Jeremy had made. They can also just have links to, let's say, an Amazon post of the same equipment so people can get information about it. But they fill this out, and then I get an email notification. I copy the completed request and make a post out of it, and then it's public. I put it up in the pinned post, and that links back to the full form that they submitted. So that's the system that we have currently. We're using PayPal. PayPal doesn't cover every country. I did put in the, let's see, let me open it up. The Q&A, I did put a little bit about that. We can explore other options. If there's a chapter outside of PayPal, we can see if there's another way that we can do things, but there's no promises that we can support everybody. But these are the countries that are supported by PayPal. So that's what we got.
So the space is already up. So when we talk about going live with this, really you're talking about just starting to kind of promote it, right?
Yep. Yeah, and there's a couple small things that I thought I can add in there. Having like a thank you list somewhere of all the people that have donated. I think people would appreciate. There's an admin to-do list. You had talked about trying to look into the DHL program. This would be perfect for that. There's a couple of things to follow up on, but this is going to be sort of a soft release, and we're probably going to learn a lot about how people use it and change some things. Like Jeremy said at the beginning of the meeting, we've done this before. So the weekly reporting used to be me just chasing after things and manually counting how many likes. Luckily, that's now a robot. The introductions were also manually done and modeled until we set up the bot to do that, which is wonderful. And now we have this wonderful way of collecting details about the countries that people are joining from. This too is going to be something where I'll model it as the Wishbone Wizard until we have the bandwidth from our team to explore other options.
Sounds good. Well, the next topic we have in the notes here comes back to these process diagrams, but I want to skip this for now because I think we're going to get into some of that next week with Isabella's presentation. And so we'll have a more meaningful discussion after we have her summary. So let's come back to the diagrams. As far as Lumio, I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there's anything new. The last one was our policy that was approved for kind of the statement of not charging for our devices, and we agreed on some language. In fact, probably wouldn't be a bad idea for me to just grab that and include it here. So I'm just going to put that into the notes under here. Okay, so we agreed just e-NABLE is a volunteer philanthropic effort. We give devices away for free. Open source licenses for e-NABLE designs typically do not prevent people from charging for devices, but any such commercial activity is done outside of e-NABLE. And we just want to encourage our volunteers to include that statement somehow. Maybe it's part of, and we ought to think about this too, because we can help with this. We already have a couple of templates that we're encouraging our volunteers to use. There's a liability waiver. There's a photo video release, but probably the liability waiver is more appropriate. Maybe we should work this language into there. If it's something that they're going to be having their recipient family sign anyway, it's a good opportunity to get this language in front of them. So I don't know what you guys think about that. I see a thumbs up from John.
Can we tie acceptance or reading or receipt of these documents into one of the badges? Like the volunteer badge, or?
Explain that. The receipt of these documents?
Well, in order to be a volunteer, you have to sign that you have received and agree with this.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. For the
that you agree to follow these policies.
It's interesting. So that's another good point. Let's put this in the code of conduct, because that is something that we are already asking our members to review and acknowledge. And so if we include it in that, they're acknowledging this as part of it.
But do they acknowledge it? Do we make it a badge requirement that they have to acknowledge the code of conduct?
I think we do. I think that's tied into our, but we should look at that now that we've changed things, right? Because there was one of the initial badges. I don't remember if it was joined the hub. One of these, we had part of the criteria was that you had acknowledged that code of conduct. And if this is being automated, that might have gotten dropped actually.
And do they provide a link to a photo or image of a signed code of conduct that we have?
Or maybe just check a box. So John in the chat mentioned, is this part of the hub enrollment process? And it really would be easy, I would imagine, to have a link in the enrollment and say, please read our code of conduct and click to agree and make it a required field.
I think we should talk to Ashley about doing that. And I think that's a good opportunity to include this language then right up front. Somebody's first contact with the e-NABLE, that should be one of the first ideas we plant. So I like that idea of working it into the onboarding. Okay. All right. So we'll follow up on that. I think that's a good idea. Otherwise, yeah, I don't think we have anything else going on in Lumio. We did have our first opportunity to put our SPC discretionary fund allocation program to use. I think it was last week with Dara, and he's off to work now on researching new and improved flexible materials for us, and we'll get a report from him on that. I think it was a good investment there.
I just
did make a post
up all the parts for a kinetic hand for Mike Larson
Oh, nice.
at 99%, so it's like a catcher's mitt, right?
Yeah.
But I printed up these monstrous hinges in NinjaFlex again, and it just once again reminded me what a joy it is to print these materials.
John brings up a good point. Where is that discretionary grant event documented? So how are we doing that?
I put it in the finance space. I posted it in the hub, and then I copied that post and I put it in the wiki of the finance page space.
Yeah, I didn't know we had a finance space. Okay, so there's a finance space, and that's where we can share these kinds of things. And then, yep. John, you said that the Open Collective page is also basically, it's going to show these things, right? It'll show the payout, it'll show what it was for, right? I think you mentioned that that would be kind of our record. Okay, so I guess it probably does make sense to have it in here too. I'll have to add that into our notes so that we have a place of capturing these here as we approve them, but I won't take the time to do that now.
I'll add the finance space.
Awesome, thanks. All right, so let's see. The next topic we have here is community systems. And I think we're in a bit of a holding pattern right now. Essentially, e-NABLE France, with Thierry kind of leading the effort, he's gotten approval for kind of developing a new and improved version of their web platform that they're using for matching and sort of back-end administration. But we're kind of in a waiting mode as they, kind of move forward with that. The hope is that what gets built there is going to be built in a way that's easily portable and copyable, and hopefully also built with multilingual, at least French and English to start with. And we're hoping to kind of get a copy of this new platform up and going, like in the hub, in a way that can be used by anybody that needs to. And we don't really know what that's going to be like or where it's going to go, but that's kind of the direction things are taking right now. So we are in a little, it puts us in a little bit of a, we're in a bit of a transition period when it comes to our tooling, when it comes especially to the tools we're using for kind of matching and case management. I mean, for now, I would say people who are using e-NABLE Web Central, especially I think a lot of folks in the US, should continue to do so, and we'll continue to support that. Folks that have other systems should continue using them. But our hope is that in the future, we're going to be able to provide an improved and simplified and centralized system that's more internationalized and more accessible and just hopefully gets us a little bit more where we need to be. So there is work being done. I guess no changes for end users at this time, but just a heads up that changes are coming. Anybody else want to add anything to that on the community systems? Yeah, John.
Yeah, I want to point out that a process is emerging here as well. Would you speak for me?
Yes. So John's pointing out that they're essentially first going to be taking their existing site and cloning it so that Turkey can use it, hopefully. And then if that works, use that as a model for making it more fully portable. I guess I hadn't connected those dots in exactly that way. That might be what they're doing. Yes, they are working on trying to get something up for that Turkey could use, but I was left with the impression that they are kind of on a parallel path, proceeding with kind of a new development effort that's going to be this. I mean, I think they're rebuilding their site from the ground up, kind of recoding it to clean it, and I think that work is still proceeding despite what they're working on with Turkey. That was my understanding.
So it looks like John's added 5 questions in the notes. Are these what you want people to read? John's 5 questions?
Those were from a while
ago. No, that's
okay.
That's right. Yeah, I conclude that we're not clear about
we're not
France's understanding of the sequencing.
So there, I guess we'll just say that there's two goals happening. One is to try to help out the folks in Turkey because they're using spreadsheets and stuff right now. We're going to see if we can somehow adapt France's system to help them. And we're also working on getting that system sort of redeveloped and ported into the hub to make it available on a wider basis. So more news to come, lots more news and details. It's very much a work in progress.
There's also interviewing other chapters. So it seems like Humanos 3D in Colombia, like Everton, is developing an app. We also have chapters in Pakistan that are interested as a side stream to this effort. It'd be probably worthwhile for us to maybe get a couple more teams together to share what they're doing and what their needs are and what their challenges are. So when e-NABLE France is ready, we can potentially have more feedback and also more potential testers when that time comes around.
Yeah, so Ben's kind of taking the lead on getting interested parties together because yeah, I think a lot of chapters out there are kind of building their own systems, and there's a lot of duplicating of efforts and a lot of little pockets of activity that others are not aware of. So I think there's probably a lot of people that are figuring out how to solve the same problems, and we're hoping to be able to share some of that and collect it and take the best of what everyone's doing. Let's see, I haven't heard from Andrew in a while, so I'm gonna leave the notes here about what he was working on, see if we can get an update from him next time. Let's see, I have a note here about volunteering needs. I don't know that there's much to talk about now. I'll just point out that, we do want to, I do think it's something we want to revisit in our pinned post, because we have kind of disorganized information right now. I mean, remember, we set up a space in the hub for volunteering needs, and there's like a spreadsheet in there and stuff, but we haven't even looked at that in forever. It's probably way out of date and not really accurate. So we just, at some point, we need to revisit how we're managing and how we're defining our volunteering needs and how we're communicating that to the community in a way that'll get people to step into those roles. And this is tied in with the discussion that we had about interns. Isabella being a great example, her internship coming to an end, but we have other internships starting with the summer coming up on us now. And so, maybe think about, there was some talk about not only how we can make best use of these interns, but also maybe having different interns, even from different schools, groups working collaboratively on things, and maybe teaming up a number of interns to achieve larger, tasks. So I don't know how much we want to get into this today. If anybody has ideas or wants to talk about volunteering needs, we can. Otherwise, I'll just leave it here as kind of a topic for future discussion. Okay.
It probably is something that we'll want to tie in to the new members base.
That's a good point. Yeah. Great place to put it.
Maybe within the ecosystem that Isabella sort of framed out, she's got sort of this launchpad design as part of her project, which
it's a good point.
Is going to be integrated in.
We'll look at that after her presentation, because yeah, I mean, the whole idea here is it's good to look at it as part of that onboarding, because it's not just about getting them into the community, it's about getting them plugged into effective roles where they can, be doing things that they're enjoying and are meaningful and that are tied to needs that we have. And so yeah, that's a good opportunity to integrate that.
Another alternative to having it be in the new member space is being able to set up almost like, it wouldn't be like a posting page, but if chapters could identify roles that they're looking for, that could be part of this new sort of chapter dashboard. Again,
I love the idea of the new member space. It doesn't have to be in just one place. We can put it in as many different places as we want, as long as we figure out a way to, so that it's edited in one place and then mirrored in other places, so we don't have to worry about it getting out of sync. But the other thing I'm thinking is that I suspect we're going to have better luck getting people to take these things on through direct dialogue and encouragement as opposed to a post. So while I love the idea of putting it into the new member space, let's think about using our monthly new member meetups as a vehicle. As part of those meetings, let's run through, hey, here's our current volunteering needs. we have an opportunity to really explain each one, see if there's anybody on the group call that might be interested in any of those things, and have an opportunity to really engage with them on that. That might be a good,
Yeah, and I think organically we have been doing that. I mean, that's where Evan Blackman came from and Eric Hempstead, which John just referenced. We haven't been keeping up with that spreadsheet. I do feel like the spreadsheet was just, it's an interesting sort of back end document, but it was overwhelming, I think, for volunteers to be involved with. I do wonder if
all we need is a list. It could be a bullet list. We just need something that defines this is exactly what we need right now.
Right. And there's some possibilities with Jeff Powell, but also potentially with Isabella and her school to look at internships. And I think when people are thinking about internships, sort of managing, the program that Isabella is part of is a MBA program. So there could be some overlaps there too, sort of student internships.
Well, when time permits, let's get back into that volunteering needs space. Let's dump the spreadsheet. Let's clean it up. Just put in, a list of bullets or something, and maybe we can kind of get that revived.
Great.
All right. Onboarding. I think we're going to hold off on the whole onboarding discussion because that's going to be a topic of next week. And that brings us down to something that we touched on last time. We have these two kind of high-level discussions that we just kind of come back to when time permits. So I'll bring these up now. So one of these is just a high-level sort of the net of this. It comes down to remote production and delivery. Does it work to try to size and make a device and ship it off to somebody and expect it to work? That's really the fundamental question being posed here. I'll just leave it at that, Bob, if you want to comment further.
Well, no, I mean, that's my conclusion is it works at a much, much lower success rate than in person. So I wouldn't sit here and say it doesn't work.
Fair enough. So, I mean, I guess maybe a better way to frame this is, what can we be doing that we're not currently doing to sort of further encourage people to work locally, to, have a more direct, involvement in the fitting and that kind of process.
That's very important. But then part of our mission is to, explore strange new worlds. I mean, there are communities of Africa and Southeast Asia and India and China where there is tremendous need.
Sure.
So if we're going to try to do that, I think the method has to be to establish local chapters and groups, realizing even those are vast territories.
And we've had some success with that. I know we've had volunteers that have, actually helped these, populations to set up a new, little maker space and be able to teach them how to make these devices. And that's the ideal scenario. It's just not something that we've really been able to.
Before my time, didn't Ed Choi in Sierra Leone?
Ed Choi in Sierra Leone is a great example of that. Yes.
Right. So that's a whole different mission, it seems to me, but one that is quite worthy. And I don't think we're going to satisfy people in Africa from the United States. I tried. It doesn't work.
Well, and it's maybe worthwhile, and we've talked about some of this in the past, but having an individual maker with the only option of supporting, let's say international projects, to be sending a single device all the way to this recipient and then trying to manage that is really challenging. But if we shift and think about how do we develop community or more sustainable resources in some of these places, that's a whole different ballgame. And I think there has been wonderful examples of that. Some of these sort of regional teams like e-NABLE France have been involved with that. There's also been, who was it? Was it teams in Italy that were mentored by chapters in France, I think?
Luxembourg mentored some.
Right, and they've done some work in Africa, but again, sort of more like team building not so much supporting specific cases. So that could be really worth collecting more information.
Well, something to think about here, the challenge is sending a device directly to an end user. They don't know how to fit the device. They don't know how to, they're not a prosthetist or anything, but what if we figured out a way to partner up with a medical professional in these regions? Okay, so they don't have 3D printing capabilities, they don't have all that. Fine, we have all that. If we're working with a medical professional instead of working with the end user, the medical professional can help to get us the information we need for sizing. We collaborate with the medical professional, we make the device, we ship it to the medical professional. They can do the fitting, they can do any on-site customization needed, etc. I feel like we'd be able to work remotely a lot more effectively if we were working through a medical professional instead of.
I think that's a great idea. Absolutely.
The
cost of shipping is still a problem.
Cost of shipping is still a problem, and finding those medical professionals that are willing to partner with us amateurs is also a challenge.
But it's less of a challenge in countries with a national healthcare system.
True.
And
we've
seen,
I've had some success reaching out to NGOs where, for instance, in the refugee camps, the Rohingya on Myanmar and Bangladesh, a lot of NGOs are in place in the more difficult spots of this planet. And they have field clinics and medical facilities already set up. So maybe that's a way to look at it.
Sorry.
As a model too, I think Adam Armfield described this program that he's started piloting. I think it was the last couple of years in Colombia, which just really seems like a clever way to do it. So he's got a partnership with medical professionals, I think also with sort of like corporate sponsors. I think he had a sponsorship from a national company for doing, like an airline company that paid for their flights, and the person in the field has to collect, or the doctor has to collect 12 potential recipient volunteers. And once they get to that tipping point, once they have 12 that they've identified, then the team will travel out. Again, they have this corporate sponsor, so the flight is free. And the idea is that they can provide it all at once. So it's sort of this batching. It involves partnership with healthcare and also with sort of these corporate sponsors.
Who are you describing here, Ben?
This is Adam Armfield with Humanos 3D. We met with him.
Yes. Okay.
A week or two ago.
I missed that part about the batching up of and traveling. That's a really good idea.
Well, another version of that is Dean Rock with the local, is it Elks? Going to Dominican Republic. They do these mission trips, if you will. But it's interesting. I have the feeling his latest mission trip wasn't as successful. And I haven't heard any more about it. Of course, the pandemic hit. But
sure.
But there's a model there for doing that with the civic clubs. Anyway, I think there's somewhere in there to get more local presence and more critical mass than just me throwing a device XYZ and.
Right.
And it might be worth having somewhere in whether it's the new member space or whether it's best practices, or we might want to set up a document that basically says, here are some things that you can explore. Hi, Safe. Looks like Safe joins us.
Yeah. Hi, Safe.
Hi, Safe.
Hi. Yeah, I want to mention, I really like this idea about the best practices. I think that it goes, first, I don't know why I just see a black screen, but I'm just going to keep talking. I don't know if you guys actually see me.
We can
see you.
Oh, okay. That's great. I don't see anybody. I just see a black screen. So I could help craft the best practices document. Some of the things that maybe could be worth integrating is part of the study that we had done in the past related to the different ecosystems. And we were measuring best practices based on recipient satisfaction and device usage. So the ecosystems that we considered more successful were the ones that had, basically overall it was the ones that had follow-up. And so the ecosystems that were able to have follow-up were the ones that overall had the best experiences for recipients. How they created follow-up was basically by having paid collaborations, because paid collaborations was especially important in cases where recipients, makers, clinicians were not making necessarily as much funding. For instance, they were from India, Mexico, etc., where they didn't receive a normal salary, and so having paid participation ensured that they would participate in the ecosystem long term to give support. So paid collaborations was one thing. Also having formal collaborations. So they established kind of contracts between the different actors so that they could work together. And I think, and those were some of the main findings that we found. I could help create I think one thing that I could do is maybe start to, I don't know if it would be useful to draft a blog post about the study and just provide bullet points, or what might be what are you guys envisioning with the best practices document?
Well, I think first of all, a presentation and your findings would be really wonderful, because in 2 minutes here you just gave us some really good nuggets, but I would much rather have a 45-minute to an hour presentation and really understand your work. So consider giving us a presentation in one of these SPC meetings whenever you're available, summarizing that as well in, like you said, just a synopsis with some bullets of the findings would be very helpful. And I think that will naturally lead us to the thinking of how we put together a best practices document. I think we need to kind of digest your research first. At least that would be my suggestion.
Okay, that sounds good. I think that's a good idea.
Is there a date that works for you? Say if I can put you right into the document to schedule it. I know, for example, the presentation that you give, it's also possible to make a post out of it. Isabel's presenting next week, and I'll probably make a little post for the hub. So that could be sort of.
Oh, great idea, actually.
Yeah, we can include the recording right there.
If it could be maybe the 28th of May.
Perfect.
Okay.
We needed something to fill in that gap. Yeah. All right, that sounds like a plan then. It's a good point to wrap up here. I'm just going to mention on a closing note on finance, we have about 30 grand sitting in the Open Collective Fund, in the e-NABLE Fund. I don't think we're necessarily at the point where we need to start doing our fundraising push yet, but we're getting there. I think we usually try to keep it around 50. So when it gets down maybe another 5K or so, we probably ought to be,
well,
getting our act together again.
We have an automatic 25,000 coming in.
Oh, sweet.
In the fall, 20,000 from Dedore and 5,000 from Milstein.
Well, that takes a little pressure off.
3-year commitments.
That takes a little pressure off. Nice. Okay.
There is a project that John, Isabel, and I have been looking at as well. Yeah, I think maybe, John's commenting on something else, but Isabella found a grant through Comcast, who we've worked with and gotten support from in the past. That seems like is a wonderful fit. So that'll be, we'll be following up on that.
Terrific. Okay. Yeah, just figure it's time to start thinking about that stuff, but nothing we need to be stressing over. Okay. Anybody have anything else before we close? All right.
Have a great week.
Have a great week. Yep. Bye-bye.